Well, again, we are looking at the motivational gifts, and they're the gifts that are listed in Romans chapter 12. They're not the gifts in 1 Corinthians 12. They're not the charismatic gifts, the tongues, interpretation, prophecy, word of wisdom, word of knowledge. They're not the diaconia, the ministry gifts, either that are in 1 Corinthians 12. And they're also not the Ephesians 4. Doma is the word there, the Greek word for apostle, prophet, evangelist, pastor, teacher. They're not that gifts. These are what have come to be called the motivational gifts. And the reason we call them that is because they're like motivations that God has deposited into us at birth, and they're drives, they're ways we view the world. One of the ways I like to put it is that if you were to put on a pair of tinted glasses, everything you see would be the color. If they were green, you'd see everything through green. If they were pink, you'd see everything through pink. And so this is like a way that we view the world. It's a drive, it's a motivation we have within us, a way that we see things. And today we're going to be talking about the motivational gift of giving. And so we're going to be seeing how a person who has those drives, who has that motivation within them, views the world, and what are the characteristics of a person who has that particular gift within them. Again, part of the reason that we're doing this is not so we can all go away and go, oh, well, that's my gift and this is who I am. Yes, we want to understand what our gift is because God has put that gift within us, that when our gift functions, the whole body of Christ functions better. Because when we're doing our part, then everything works better. And so we want to find out what is our function, what is our purpose in the body of Christ, what is it we're called to do, and how does that fit into the overall. But a second and really important reason for understanding the characteristics of these gifts, and especially the misapplications. We're going to see how a carnal person who's maybe they have the gift of giving, but they're a new believer, or they're just very carnal and they're not using it in a godly way, we'll see how they use it to benefit themselves. And so the second thing that this does, it helps us to understand other people in the body of Christ, and so it can promote unity. When we see somebody and they frustrate us with the way they are, if we can understand their perspective on things, then we can appreciate it and even come to appreciate and recognize the benefit that they are to the body of Christ. And giving is one that givers used to frustrate me, and I'll share some of that example when we get into it. Until I understood, I go, oh, that's what they're trying to do. I misunderstood their goal in some of the ways they operate. And so this is an example of that. And we'll be talking about the motivational gift of giving today. Originally, I had looked at trying to do 2 gifts a week. And I realized that was really going to be pushing it, but I thought, well, let's see if we can do this, because I didn't want to stretch it out too far. But after doing that a couple weeks, I realized, we're just making it too fast. We're just going through this too quick, and we're not really digesting it like we probably ought to. So I've decided to just give up and give in, and we're going to go one gift at a time. And so this week we'll be doing giving, next week leadership or organization, and then we'll be looking at the gift of mercy, and then we'll wrap it up in 4 weeks with an overview of all of the gifts, seeing how they all function together in the body of Christ. And in case you haven't figured out what your particular gift is by then, we'll do a test so that you can see how, by the way, it's not a test you can fail, okay? Oh, no, I'm not coming that week. I don't want to fail. I'll find out I don't have any gifts.
I failed the blood test once.
Failed the blood test. Well, Joe, you would, man. You got to study harder for that blood test. So you won't fail the test. But here's the other thing about it. It not only will tell you this is your gift, but it will show you a ranking of each of the gifts. Because as we've talked about before, the idea is not to be a 10 in one gift and a 0 in everything else, okay? The idea is that we want to develop and grow in each of these characteristics and each of these gifts, because Jesus was like a 10 in all of them. And we want to have the nature of Christ, the character of Christ. So as we develop in each of these areas, as we take this test, we'll be able to see, well, I'm a little weak in this one, I'm really strong in this one and this one, but I need to develop in this area. And so we'll be able to see areas where we need to work on our own life as well. And so then you'll have your sheets and you go back and see the characteristics of those gifts and say, wow, these are some characteristics I need to develop in my life. You'll see the carnal application and see, wow, these are some things I need to make sure aren't evident in my life. So we'll do that over the next few weeks. That sound good? Everybody with me?
Real good.
Ready to go? All right. These are the gifts we're looking at, and they're called by different names in different translations. So we've kind of standardized them with prophecy, serving, teaching, exhortation. This week, the week of is giving. Next week, then, be organizing, and we'll have mercy, organizing or leadership. And so each of these gifts, too, has two primary drives. The things that, if you were to sum it up in a nutshell, this would be what it just really floats their boat, what really gives them a thrill. And with the gift of giving, it's to, number one, to entrust their assets to quality ministry, to quality service. And again, the word is to entrust. It's not to give. It's not just, I want to give here, I want to give here. They want to see that when they're giving it to something that's going to produce something for the kingdom of God. They want to entrust their assets to quality ministry. And then the second is to maximize the results of that investment. They want to see that when they're investing in the kingdom, good stuff is going to happen with this. So these are the two primary motives, the two primary drives of those with the gift of giving. And first of all, a little disclaimer here too. It's natural to think, well, I couldn't have the gift of giving because I'm too poor. Givers obviously are rich people, right? They got lots of bucks. They must be. And I want to just tell you that's not the case at all. You can have givers who maybe live in a dirt floor house, live in an adobe hut somewhere. Giving has really nothing to do with how wealthy you are. It has to do with how you view the world, how you view the assets of God, and how you view the kingdom of God. And so it doesn't have anything to do with that. And in fact, I'm going to talk about two people that I know, two friends of mine, that are stereotypical. I mean, you can predict what they're going to do because they are just stereotypical givers. And one of them is a doctor. He's highly educated, medical doctor, and very wealthy, but you'd never really know it. He could be very wealthy, let me put it that way. I don't really know for sure because he lives very modestly, drives an old Ford, doesn't own a yacht, or I don't even think he has a fishing boat, no summer cottage or anything, no summer cabin or anything like that. He just lives very modestly, and you'll see that's part of his motivation, part of his gift of giving. And the other fellow is really a blue-collar worker. Now, he has prospered over the years because this gift, as you'll see, it's a gift that can be used to prosper yourself as well, and he's used it properly and used it. But he is also a stereotypical giver, but started out just really as a junk collector. And like I said, I use him as an example. I'd be driving around with him in his pickup truck, and he'd see a pile of something alongside the road, and he'd go, I know where I can sell that for $100. He'd get out, throw it in his van, and throw it in the back of his truck, and boom, he's made $100 that day, And that was just how he started out, and he's done very well as well, but he's very generous and very much a giver. So these are the two guys I'm going to use for an example. In the Bible, the example we see is a kind of a mid-level government bureaucrat. So even bureaucrats can be givers, and that guy was the guy called Matthew, who was a despised government bureaucrat, a tax collector. Can you imagine? Tax collectors have gotten a bum rap for all these days, haven't they? They don't realize that the IRS is the conscience of the nation, isn't it? I mean, if it weren't for the IRS, how many of us would be scoundrels? Some of us are scoundrels even with the IRS, so we won't ask for a show of hands on that one, because, okay. So let's look at some of these traits here, characteristics. Again, we're going to look at a positive characteristic, and then we're going to see how that is carnally sometimes misused by a carnal believer. So number one, they are able to recognize available resources. Able to recognize available resources. Like I said, my friend driving down the road in his pickup truck, he sees a pile of junk alongside the road, and boy, there's a resource. I can do something with that for the kingdom. Able to recognize available resources and make wise purchases and investments. Wise purchases and investments. I was looking at buying a digital camera, and I knew this other friend of mine had just bought a digital camera, so I just called him up. And I said, which one should I get? He had done the research. He could tell me this and that and the advantages of this and that. And I said, which one did you get? And he said, I finally settled on this one. That's good enough for me. And I got that one, and man, never regretted it. It was an amazing little camera. So they are able to recognize available resources and make wise purchases and investments. However, a carnal misuse of that is they hoard resources for themselves, and they do not distribute them. Do you know that in Deuteronomy 14 it says, I think this is interesting, that in Malachi it says that one of the purposes for the tithe is that there may be meat in my house. It's to provide funding for those who minister full-time unto the Lord. We're going to talk about that a little bit later too. So in Malachi we see that was one of the purposes for the tithe, not just to support the local church, but to fund those who are involved in full-time ministry. That there may be meat in my house, it says in Malachi. But in Deuteronomy it says that one of the purposes of the tithe is that we would learn the fear of the Lord. Isn't that interesting? That awesome respect for the Lord. One of the purposes for the tithe is that we would learn to not depend upon our own funds and our own ability to make a living, but that we would learn to depend upon the Lord, learn a fear and an awesome respect of the Lord. That's Deuteronomy 14:22, if you're interested in that. And one of the things about a giver, and both these guys that I say are stereotypical givers, they know the fear of the Lord. They understand that these are resources God has entrusted to me, and I am going to give account for how I use these things. Stuff, time, money, everything. These are God's resources, and I'm going to give an account for how I use them. And so that's one of the things about a giver is they have a great respect, awe, fear of the Lord. And the fear of the Lord, by the way, is a good thing. Cause us to depart from evil, it says. The fear of the Lord will keep you from the snares of man. There's all kinds of promises about if you fear and have a great honor and respect for the Lord, great blessing comes your way. Fear of the Lord will give you long life. Fear of the Lord, blessing to your children. There's all kinds of things that the fear of the Lord will bring into your life. In fact, I think one of the greatest things missing in our culture today is a fear of the Lord that would totally revolutionize our culture if we just had a fear of the Lord instead of Him being our good buddy that we can just, hang out with on weekends, So, I'm on my pulpit now. Let me get back down. Here's the thing, though. If they begin to lose their fear of the Lord, they will begin to fear a lack. They will begin to fear shortage. They will begin to fear not having enough, as all of us do. And so they begin to hoard. And so that can be a carnal application there. Number two, they have a desire to invest themselves in a gift. A desire to invest themselves. The giver needs a reassurance that the decision they made to invest the Lord's resources here are really going to meet a legitimate need. In fact, one of these fellows, when we were pastoring, we took our first trip to Guatemala. We were really impressed with some of the things we saw in feeding centers down there for children. How cheaply they could feed a child, and because of the way they were doing. And I was just so impressed with this ministry. In fact, we later joined this ministry and eventually became over those feeding programs and those feeding centers. I was just so impressed with how many they could really feed a child for 75 cents a day. And I've always been skeptical of these ministries. They go, well, send us $3 and we'll educate this child and feed him and clothe him and give him a Harvard education. And I said, hey, come on, you can't do that. But by working with the local churches and volunteers in the churches, it was just amazing how far they can make a dime stretch in these feeding centers. And I came back to our church and I just started telling them about it, and this guy got excited. He said, but instead of just saying, I want to give $500 to one of those feeding centers or $1 or whatever, he said, I want to go see them. He wanted to invest himself in it. He wanted to see it himself and be a part of it. He wasn't enough just to give his money. So I said, well, that's awesome. I'll arrange for the trip down there. I'll tell him you want to come. And so he said, well, I want you to come with me. I said, hey, I'm planning a church here. I don't have any money. We barely have money to keep the lights on at the church. I just got back from Guatemala. I can't afford to go. He said, I'll pay your way. All of a sudden, I could afford to go. And so we went with him on that trip. And he got down there and saw, but he wanted, that was that need to invest himself in what was going on, not just give money to it, that investment. But the carnal use of that is they may use the gift to control the project or people. You see that when a gift is given with strings attached. And if you've ever had a situation like that, you see that strings can quickly become chains. And sometimes it's just better to say, nah, no thank you. I'm not going to take that gift because those strings can chain you up, and all of a sudden you find yourself doing stuff that really is not really effective. And so you find yourself investing in things that aren't really effective to make somebody else happy. So they may a carnal one would use the gift to control. Number 3, they have a desire to give high quality gifts. They are attuned to the value and the quality of a gift. And you see this in Matthew. It's kind of interesting. First of all, he was a tax collector, so he knew kind of the value of money. But he is the only gospel writer to mention that the Magi brought gold, frankincense, and myrrh. He wanted you to know not just that they brought gifts, but the quality and the value of the gifts that they brought. Also, they have great spiritual significance in the gold, the king, the frankincense, and the myrrh. But he also described when Mary came and anointed Jesus' feet, he's the one that mentions that it was very precious oil that he anointed her feet with. And so, he was paying attention to that. And when Jesus was buried, he points out that Jesus was given a tomb, but it was a new tomb, more valuable. Didn't get some old used tomb. I mean, he was only going to use it for a couple days anyway, but so it could have been a used tomb, but Matthew noted, no, it was it was a new tomb, unused, brand new, right off the market. All right, so number 3 then, the negative side of that is they may encourage a higher standard of living than is really appropriate. Higher standard of living. I'll give you another example. We had a giver come while we were on the mission field. Our mission at that time was in desperate need of a 4-wheel drive vehicle that could get people up into the mountains, even on the muddy roads and stuff, and get medical teams up there. And so we were looking at buying a used Korean thing called a Corando. They are just like, the logo's a rhinoceros, and I mean, that's what they are. If it sounds like you guys have seen the Corandos. They are like a tank. And so we were going to buy a used one, and this giver comes down and he goes, well, you don't want a used one. Man, when you're out there, you can't afford to have something break down. And so he says to our president, he says, come on, what's a new one cost? He goes, I don't know, let's go to the dealership. So they go over to the dealership, and he looks at it, and here, you can get this cheap winch. No, you don't want a cheap winch. Man, when you need a winch, you need a good winch, You don't want, because, if you're stuck in the mud, you wrap the chain around, probably don't know how to use a winch. We don't use them much here. You wrap it around a tree, and then that winch pulls you out of the mud, and so you unstick yourself if you're out in the middle of nowhere. And so he says, no, you want this one and this one. So he fitted this thing all out. This is what you need. And he goes, well, yeah, but man, it's like, it doesn't sound like a lot now, but it was like $30,000 or something, And he goes, whoa, $30,000. Oh, yeah, but he goes, this is what you need. So the president's all excited. Great, this guy's going to buy us a new Corando, a $30,000 car. So when we walk away, he says, that's the one you need to get. And I tell you what, I'll give you half of it if you can raise the other half. Well, yeah, but for less than half we could buy a used one, but this one you need. So our president got on busy doing it, and we ended up with a brand new Corando. So it was wonderful, but it probably a used one would have done just as good and would have been okay, but we got a new one because of it. And so, but that was a good drive, and it all worked out okay, but it may encourage a higher standard of living than what is really necessary, and so you end up driving a BMW instead of a Chevy, which, if you want to complain about that, you can complain. Some things just aren't worth complaining about. That's so trivial. Why worry with it if I have to drive a BMW, right? All right. Moving right along. Oh, it is kind of tough. I had a pastor friend of ours who he was always embarrassed. A good friend of his owned the Mercedes dealership and the Nissan dealership. And so he would give him a car as an advertising thing. And so he always drove a Mercedes. And his wife, who was probably in her 60s or 70s at the time, had one of those Datsun Z cars. You remember all those? Like a really hot sports car. Nissan. Yeah, he said, man, I'm always having to apologize for this, because it looks like, wow, look at the pastor there, brand new Mercedes, he must have got the bucks coming in, He doesn't realize. He says, I'm driving this cheaper than I could drive a Buick, So anyway, sometimes those gifts can be a little embarrassing, sometimes. So deal with it, right? It's rough. Rough all the way around, right? Okay. What are we? Number 4, right? The giver wants his gift to answer a prayer. Many times a person with a motivational gift of giving will give when the need is not obvious. They will sense a prompting of the Holy Spirit. If they're in tune with the Lord, they'll sense a prompting to give. And then they like to know some kind of confirmation that this was indeed the Lord. And so a thanks is very important to them, let them know maybe how that gift was used, because they're giving in response to the Lord, but you know how it is. You kind of want to know that you really were hearing the Lord and that this was really of God and that the gift was really necessary and needed and helpful. And the carnal application of that is they may feel guilt about personal assets. They may begin storing up assets and they begin feeling guilty about this and not realizing that God may be having them save up for a big need that's coming down the road. And so if they're not in tune with the Lord, they might feel guilty about having some assets stored up here, not knowing that God's got a plan coming down the road. Number 5, they desire to give quietly. Quietly. And part of that is they recognize the danger of money and of giving money. There's a danger of creating dependence. And those of us who've been on the mission field, you realize how bad that is. The old story is if you walk by a little boy on your way to work every day and you give him a quarter Monday, you give him a quarter Tuesday, you give him a quarter Wednesday, you give him a quarter Thursday, and then Friday you don't give him a quarter, what's he probably going to say? Hey, where's my quarter? Yeah, exactly. And so there's a danger of creating dependence, and a giver is very sensitive to that. And they want you, like them, to look to the Lord as a supply, not to them as a supply. So when they give, they oftentimes like to give quietly, give anonymously, and give under the table, and not let everybody know about it. Because they also realize that there's a reward for them, and they don't want their reward here. They want it there. And Jesus said the Pharisees, they've gotten all the reward they're going to get. They got the praise of men here. So would you rather have the praise of men here or the praise of God there? And so they give quietly. The negative side of that is that they can many times reject pressure appeals. How does that happen? The opposite side of that is the fact that they want to give quietly. So therefore, somebody's out here making a big noise. Hey, we have this desperate need. This is what's going on. We really need your help. This problem hit here. And because they want to give quietly, they might reject that public appeal. And the problem with that is, many times those are legitimate needs. And if they're not in tune with the Lord, they might miss a real needed opportunity. A disaster is hit over here. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's mentioning it. And because everybody's mentioning it, they may not want to give to it. And they really need to be in tune with the Lord, because God may want them to invest in that. Because if you wait too long, it may be too late. Yeah. Number 6, they are concerned that their gift may corrupt. May corrupt. Again, a mature giver understands the destructiveness that money can bring to a life, to people who haven't exercised the same discipline and the same recognition of the same value that that God has worked in their life. And so you're giving money to people who aren't understanding it or appreciating it, and they're concerned. Again, they might create dependency. They might create slothfulness in this person because, don't have to go out and work for it. It's like, it's easy. Or extravagance. Wow, I've got this extra money. I can go do this with it. And so they are very concerned with that. So they're concerned, they are aware that their gift may corrupt. But they may be stingy with their own family. Yeah. Stingy with their own family, because they recognize that, my husband or my wife or my kids, they just don't appreciate the value of a dime, So they withhold from their own kids, they withhold from their own family, because they're concerned that their kids aren't going to use it well, or they might create dependence in their kids, or they might create slothfulness in their kids, or they might create an extravagant lifestyle in their kids and get their kids to expecting all these things. So they may appear stingy with their own family. And that's why it's very important that a husband and a wife, if one of you is a giver, you work together on these things, and the giver listens to the advice and counsel of the other. Okay? Number 7, they exercise personal frugality. Personal frugality. Frugal, cheapness. They recognize that the results of their wealth many times is because of their own personal frugality. Like I mentioned, this friend of ours who, he could have the vacation homes, and he could have a yacht, and he could drive a big fancy car. He lives very frugally, and uses his money to invest in other things and other people and in the kingdom. And so many times they are content with the basics themselves. I just need a car. I don't need a fancy one. Don't need one that's going to draw attention. I just need this. And so they get by with that. They are concerned many times too in getting the best buy, which isn't always the cheapest buy, but they're very good, again, at the quality of resources, and they're very good at determining that. But they may give, number 7, to projects, but not to people. Many times, and this is pretty stereotypical givers, and if you've ever been in a position where you're receiving, you many times see that there are those people who will give to a project, but they never give to support you on a monthly basis. They never give to help you feed your family or travel or do your ministry. But if there's a project that comes along, they'll give to projects. And many people like to do that. One-time need, one-time thing. We're building a church. There was a need here, there's a need there. And they'll give to a one-time project. Or they'll give to projects, but not to people. And the problem is, biblically, the basis for giving is distributing to the needs of the saints. And in the kingdom, people are always more important than projects. And so we need to learn to invest in people, not so much in projects. My motivational gift is not giving, but I have learned the value of giving over the years. Again, we're to develop each of those motivational gifts in our life. I have learned the value of giving, and man, I invest in every missionary I can. And you know, the Bible talks about not letting the right hand know what the left hand is doing. But I want you guys to know, just maybe to motivate you and challenge you, and some of you, we give between 18 to 20%. I mean, we left the tithe behind a long time ago. That's baseline. That's just stepping up to the bat. That's not even doing anything. We give like 18 to 20%, and I would love to raise that to even more. How do we do that? Well, we started when we were giving 10%. We were on the mission field, and the Lord said to me, I want you to give 1% above your tithe to missions. Lord, I'm a missionary myself. I'm giving 100% of me and my family to missions. I want you to give 1% to somebody beyond you that's reaching the nations. And so when I calculated that, again, we were missionaries on the field, so that wasn't very much. I mean, like $2 or something. I was like, this isn't even worth messing with. So we started with like 3%. And so we started giving a little bit above, and then God just blessed, and God blessed, and we saw it. So we gave a little bit more, and God blessed, and we gave a little bit more, and God blessed, and we gave a little bit more. And we just kept raising that and raising that. And I want to encourage you guys to do this. Hopefully you're tithing. Because again, that's just like baseline. And if you're not, you need to be. I can't explain it. It's one of those mathematical things that don't make sense. How do you take 5 loaves and 2 fish and feed 4,000 people and have 7 baskets left over?
It doesn't belong to us in the first place.
Right, but that doesn't add up. And tithing doesn't add up either. In fact, wow, should I go here? We can always delete it off the tape later, right? There is this, in the Old Testament, one of the things that I get rid of it as quick as I can. Here's the reason why. In the Old Testament, there's a kind of a hidden picture of the significance of tithing. When they went into the promised land, the Lord said to Joshua, he said, Jericho is mine. And he used a particular word. It is to be set apart. And it was the same word used for a gift that is set apart for destruction unto the Lord. That is mine. You're not to take anything from there. You're to destroy it all. You take none of the spoils of war from Jericho. Okay? That's what they were supposed to do. Now, they didn't know at the time there were going to be at least 9 other cities listed that they could take the spoils of. So the first tenth belonged to the Lord. Okay? If you remember what happened to Achan, one fella, he saw a few little really trivial things compared to what they would have attained in the future, and he stole those. He kept those, and he hid them under his tent. And they went out to battle the next battle, and this was an easy town. Jericho was the biggie. This was an easy one. I just sent a few guys up there. They got kicked. They got defeated, and they came back. What happened here? What happened, Lord? And God said, you kept some of my stuff. And what had happened, you see, when something is set apart for destruction, it's like it has a curse upon it. It's set apart for God. And when Achan kept that curse is like picking up something that is infested. Guess what happens? That curse came back upon his family. And so what happens, he and his whole family are destroyed. And I've always felt like, wow, that 10%, that is, and I don't remember the Hebrew word, but there's a particular Hebrew word meaning set apart for destruction unto the Lord. It's like it's infected. It's like, burn that baby up. I don't want to touch it, because it's got this, it's his, it's not mine. I don't want to be touching the things that belong to him. I want to just get it to him as quick as I can. And that's been my attitude, like with tithing. It's like, well, I got to get rid of this stuff because it belongs to the Lord. And if I hold on to it, that curse that is on that comes back upon me. And so I don't know, I can't explain it all, but I guarantee you this, if you begin to give that 10%, first of all, remember in Deuteronomy, what I quoted there, the reason God instituted tithing was to teach us the fear of the Lord. And you go, oh my goodness, if I give this, I'm not going to eat this week. Oh my goodness, if I give this, am I going to be able to pay my electric bill? Am I going to be able to pay this or that? I would just say, see what God does. In fact, that's the one time we're told to test the Lord. We're not to test him by walking out on the water and seeing if the water gets hard. We're not to test him by jumping off a building and seeing if the angels will lift us up lest we stub our toe. But the one time we are saying, the Lord says in Malachi, he says, test me, prove me in this. See if I will not open up the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing. And that term windows of heaven is used twice in Scripture. Once in Malachi where he says, I will open up the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing. The other time is in Genesis. When the flood came, it says he opened up the windows of heaven. It wasn't a blessing that time, but it gives you a picture of how much pours out when those windows are open. There's a lot that pours out of that. He will bless you in that. And I'm not saying if you give $100, $100 is going to come back, but I'm telling you this, there will be blessings better than $100 that come back to you. So I just want to encourage you, if you're not tithing, start with tithing. Start by giving to the people of God. And so I just put these up here. This is how you can give, for example, to Mike, cmnetwork.org. At the top, you click donate, and then there's a little pop-up window, and you enter Mike Cave, and he will pop up there, and you can scroll down, boom, give to him. You give one time, set it up on a monthly, whatever. There's our link, c10.org/Rick Malm. It shows how you can give to us. And then you go to wycliffe.org for Gary and Sue, and it's wycliffe.org, and there's their account number. And you will experience a blessing in that. And one of the reasons I tell people I give to so many missionaries is I'm kind of greedy. When I get to heaven, I'd like to have a lot waiting for me up there, And here's how that works, because in Matthew it says this. It's the most amazing passage in Matthew. It says this. If you receive a prophet because he's a prophet, you will receive a prophet's reward. Well, how do you receive somebody? Well, let's read on. It tells us, if you receive a righteous man because he's a righteous man, you receive a righteous man's reward. And what I love about that, it doesn't say if you receive a prophet, God will take that prophet's reward and chink off a little corner of it and give it to you. You receive the same reward as him. You receive a prophet's reward. If you receive a righteous man, the righteous man doesn't lose a little of his reward. Chink, chink, chink. It's like the loaves and fishes. The little boy didn't lose his loaves and fishes. I say little boy, that's a little story we tell. I don't know if it's a little boy. Wherever they got that loaves and fishes from, he got more back. He got full on what he got, and there was leftovers too, So it's not like God chinks off a little corner and says, well, here's some for you. And the righteous man goes, hey, wait a minute, where'd my gift go? Where'd my reward go? He just doubles it all. And then it goes on to say, and if you even give a cup of cool water in my name to one of these little ones, surely you will not lose your reward. And so as I understand that, as I read that, I would love to be involved in fighting human trafficking in Thailand and fighting the horrific things that go on there to the lady boys, these little boys that are brought up to be women prostitutes and dressed like women it's horrific things happen around the world. I would love to be over there and just be involved in that. I can't be. That's not where God's assigned me. But I can sure have a part of that reward By investing in people who are doing that. And I would love to be involved in Christian education. I don't think there's anything more effective than Christian education. And I've done that before. I've seen it, never seen anything more effective in my whole life than that. But I can't do that right now. That's not where God has assigned me. But I can sure invest in Christian teachers. And I just wrote to folks that invest in us, and I said, by investing in us, you're enabling us to enable so many others. And so together, we are fighting human trafficking. Together, we are feeding the hungry. Together, we are caring for orphanages. 24/7, somewhere in the world, one of our missionaries is sharing the love of Jesus. And I get to be a part of that. And those who invest in our ministry get to be a part of that. Mike's supporting national workers around the world. When you invest in him, you get to be a part of these guys in Rwanda that are just chugging it out in hard places. Rwandan guys, nationals who can't be thrown out of the country and who face the persecution in these different countries. You get to be a part of that. And with Bill and Elizabeth, same as with us, you get to be a part of all these workers around the world that are doing amazing things. And Gary and Sue with Bible translation. And what they do is care for and train the missionaries with Wycliffe. And so they're helping, they're making Bible translations possible around the world to where people can read the Bible in their own language. And if you speak a second language, it's like with me, I got to where when I would go to church, I could understand everything the pastor was saying in Spanish. I could read the Bible in Spanish, but it never really touched me like if I would hear it in English. I'd understand it. I go, oh, hey, great message, man, right on, that was good. But it never grabbed my heart. And that's what, in Wycliffe, they talk about the heart language. And when you can read it in your own language, particularly if there's nothing else available in your language, which many of the Wycliffe translators, that's the only thing available in their language. And what's even more powerful, many times now they take those written translations and then convert them to the Jesus film, to audio translations, to where they can hear the message. Because many of them can't read either, but they can hear it in their own language. And all of a sudden, boy, the Word of God is quick and powerful and sharper than that two-edged sword, just pierces their heart in a way that just hearing it in a second or third language may not. Number 8, one with a motivational gift of giving attempts to use their gifts to motivate others. And I told you that in the past, I used to be frustrated with givers, because I maybe would have a project we're working on or something, and like this guy with the Corando, he would come to me, somebody would come to me and they go, hey, you need $5,000 to build a church. I'll give the last 1,000, or I'll give half of it if you raise the other half in 90 days. And I always thought, if you want to give it, just give it. If you don't want to give it, keep it. Just don't be putting this pressure on me to do this. And then when I realized, no, they're not trying to pressure anybody. What they're doing is they see this as a motivation to help others get involved. And so I can go out and say, hey, look, for every dollar you give, there's a matching dollar. And so it doubles your gift. And to a giver, that really pumps their buttons. They really like that. And they think doesn't motivate me to give, by the way, but I just go, well, whatever, but it does some people. And so their motivation is good. It's to get others involved, because they want others to experience the blessing that they've seen in using God's resources for God's kingdom. So they attempt to motivate others using the gift. And then the other side of that is they may cause people to look to them. They may cause people to look to them, not the Lord. As people begin to, if they're not careful about how they give, which they usually are, if a carnal one, they let people know, and they're boastful of their gifts, or just make sure you put my name on that little pew there or whatever, then people can begin to look to them and begin to come to them with needs instead of looking to the Lord. And they may even appeal to their human nature. Well, look at how this is going to help. And so then they can begin giving to things that aren't really the Lord's direction for them. Okay? Number 9. They seek confirmation of amounts to give. In other words, they see this as a spiritual ministry, the amount that they're going to give. When they have an amount in their heart, maybe they'll talk with their wife, they'll talk with their husband, they'll talk with somebody and just seek confirmation, or they feel like this is an amount, and then they find out, boy, that's just the amount that was needed. They like that confirmation, which, by the way, is good for all of us. I know Jan and I do this when we when we have an opportunity to invest in something. I'll usually kind of say, "What are you thinking?" And we'll come up with it together, hearing from the Lord as to what we're to invest in something. But they may wait too long to give. They may wait too long to give. Again, if they're waiting for that confirmation, they may wait too long and miss the blessing of giving an amazing amount at just the right time. It's been so amazing how we, because we've been living through the support and gift of others for so many years, 25 plus years now, 30 years, something like that. We have seen, well, in fact, when we were in Guatemala, it was funny because we would have these months where maybe a big extra gift came in. And it happened so frequently that right after that, there'd be a big bill come in. You know, you go, oh, that's really, wow, isn't that, I'm sure glad God provided it ahead of time rather than letting us sweat it out and providing it afterwards. But it got to be so almost funny. I remember one month we had this like large gift, like $400 extra came in and go, wow, we just kind of looked at each other, wonder what's going to happen. And sure enough, that month we got a $400 water bill. $400. And I went to the water company. I said, what, $400? He says, yeah, your meter broke. I said, well, my meter broke? Well, that's kind of your problem. I go, well, yeah, but we fixed it now. And it was running, it was reading wrong. I go, well, but it's your meter, right? Yeah. And it broke. Yeah. And so it was reading wrong. Right. But we fixed it now. Yeah, but I shouldn't have to pay this. Oh, no. You still have to pay it because that's what the meter said. But it was broken. Yeah, but it's fixed now. I don't care if it's fixed now. There was no getting through to them. We had to pay the $400 or they were going to cut the water off, you know. But God had provided it ahead of time. It's so awesome when you see God provide this way. And that's, if a giver waits too long, he might miss the benefit of seeing that happen with him, because we've had that happen with us too. When we would give to somebody and all of a sudden, wow, you guys didn't even know, but we had this need, and it's just like you go, that's just so awesome. It's fun is what it really is. And that's what God wants our giving to be. He wants it to be fun, to where we just enjoy seeing what God does through that. He loves a cheerful giver. Yeah. All right, number 10. They're alert to valid needs that he fears others may neglect. Alert to valid needs. And so they can see things many times that we don't see, that the average person may not see. It's like the server who, he's walking down the hall and he's the only one who sees the wad of paper laying in the corner that needs to be picked up and dropped in the trash. You know, well, a giver, he sees financial needs. Well, here's this need over here, and nobody's even paying any attention to it. And if he's carnal, that's the other side of it, he may resent that no one else is meeting the need. Why is it always me? Why am I always the one having to do this? Nobody else even pays any attention, you know? And that's if he's carnal in that.